I'm 80 years old, and when my husband died 2 years ago, I felt something I wasn't supposed to feel. Relief, not sadness, not grief, relief. Like I could finally breathe after holding my breath for 52 years. And here's the part that makes people uncomfortable. He was a good man. Everyone said so. Kind, responsible, never raised his voice, never cheated, never drank too much. A good man by every measure that matters. And I still felt relief when he was gone. Both of those things are true. And for 2 years I've been trying to understand how that's possible. How you can spend half a century with someone who never did anything wrong and still feel like their death set you free. If you've ever felt guilty for feeling relieved instead of devastated, if you've ever wondered how you can love someone and still feel trapped by them, you need to hear this. Because what I learned is that a good person and a good partner are not the same thing. And that difference cost me my entire adult life. Let me tell you how I got here. Because it didn't start with relief. It started with hope. I met my husband James in 1962. I was 18, he was 23. We met at a church picnic. He was polite, well-dressed, had a good job at the post office. My mother loved him immediately, said I'd be lucky to marry a man like that. So when he proposed 6 months later, I said yes. Not because I was madly in love, but because he seemed safe, stable, like he'd take care of me. And in 1963, that's what girls were supposed to want. We got married in April, small ceremony, his family and mine. I wore a white dress my mother made. James wore a suit he'd saved up for. Everyone said we looked perfect together. The first year was fine. Not exciting, but fine. James went to work every morning at 6, came home at 4:30. We'd eat dinner, watch television, go to bed. Weekends he'd work on the car or mow the lawn. I'd clean, do laundry, visit my mother. It was predictable, routine, safe. Exactly what I thought marriage was supposed to be. But somewhere around year 3, I started to feel it, this heaviness, like I was living someone else's life, going through motions that didn't quite fit. James was never mean, never cruel, but he also never asked what I wanted, what I thought, what I dreamed about. Conversations were about practical things, bills, groceries, what needed fixing around the house. Never about feelings or ideas or who we were becoming. I tried talking to him once, told him I felt lonely even though we were always together. He looked confused, said we saw each other every day. How could I be lonely? Then he went back to reading the newspaper. He didn't understand, and I didn't know how to explain it, so I stopped trying. We had 2 children, a son in 1965, a daughter in 1968, and suddenly I had a reason to stay busy. Diapers, feedings, school activities, doctor appointments. I poured everything into being a mother because at least that felt meaningful. James was a good father in the practical sense. He provided, made sure the kids had what they needed, went to school events when he could. But he wasn't warm, wasn't playful. He was like a manager, not a dad. The kids grew up, left for college, then careers, then their own families, and suddenly it was just James and me again, in a house that felt too quiet, with nothing to say to each other. By then we'd been married 35 years, and I realized we'd become roommates, polite strangers sharing space but not lives. I'd watch other couples sometimes, the way they'd laugh together, touch each other casually, have conversations that went deeper than grocery lists, and I'd feel this ache, this deep, painful ache for something I'd never had. But James wasn't a bad husband. He didn't cheat, didn't gamble, didn't hit me. He worked hard, paid the bills, never complained. By every standard that mattered to our generation, he was doing everything right. So why did I feel so empty? I tried to talk to my daughter about it once. She was going through a rough patch in her own marriage. I thought maybe I could help. Maybe share that marriage isn't always what you think it'll be. I said, "Your father and I, we don't really connect. We never have, but we make it work." She looked at me like I'd said something terrible. "Mom, that's so sad. You deserve more than just making it work." And I said, "He's a good man. That's enough." But it wasn't enough. I knew it wasn't. I'd known for decades. I just didn't think I was allowed to want more. You don't leave a good man. Not in my generation. Not when he's never done anything wrong. You stay. You be grateful. You tell yourself millions of women have it worse. And I did. For 52 years. James started having health problems at 75. Heart issues, high blood pressure, diabetes. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but serious enough that he needed care. Medication schedules, doctor appointments, dietary restrictions. I became his caretaker, added it to the long list of roles I'd played. Wife, mother, housekeeper, caretaker. He never thanked me, not because he was ungrateful. It just didn't occur to him to thank me for things he thought were my job. At 76, he had a small stroke. Recovered mostly, but it scared him. Made him more dependent on me. He couldn't drive anymore. Couldn't manage his medications alone. Needed help with things he'd always done himself. And I did it all, without complaining. Because that's what you do for your husband, especially when he's a good man who never did anything wrong. But inside I was drowning. Every day felt heavier, like I was carrying weight I'd never be able to put down. Then 2 years ago, James had a massive heart attack. I found him in the garage, called 911, rode with him in the ambulance, sat in the hospital waiting room while they tried to save him. They couldn't. He died that afternoon, 78 years old, married to me for 52 of them. The doctor came out and told me, said they'd done everything they could, asked if I needed to call anyone, if I was okay. And I felt it, that wave of relief, so strong it almost knocked me over. I wasn't sad, I wasn't devastated, I was free. And immediately I felt guilty. What kind of wife feels relieved when her husband dies? What kind of person doesn't grieve someone who was good to them? But the relief didn't go away. Even at the funeral, even when people came up to me crying, telling me how sorry they were, what a good man James was. Even when my children hugged me, worried about how I'd manage alone. I felt guilty for not feeling devastated, but I couldn't make myself feel something that wasn't there. The first few weeks after he died, people kept checking on me, bringing food, calling to see if I needed anything. Everyone assumed I was falling apart, but I wasn't. I was waking up. For the first time in 52 years, I could make decisions without considering someone else. I could eat what I wanted, when I wanted, watch whatever I felt like watching, go to bed at whatever time suited me. I rearranged the furniture, something small, but James had never liked when I moved things, said it was fine the way it was. Now I could put things wherever I wanted. I started reading again, real books, not just magazines. Things I found interesting, not just things that were easy to put down when James needed something. I joined a book club, started having coffee with women I'd known for years but never had time to really talk to, and slowly I realized something terrible. I'd been living half a life. Not because James was cruel or abusive, but because our marriage had no room for me to be fully myself. He never asked me to disappear. He just never noticed when I did. That's what I've been trying to understand for 2 years. How someone can be good and still wrong for you. How you can spend decades with a person and never really know them. How you can love someone in theory, but feel trapped by them in practice. James was a good man. I believe that. He worked hard, provided for his family, never intentionally hurt anyone. By the standards of his generation, he was an excellent husband, but he never saw me. Not really. Never asked who I was beyond the roles I played for him. Wife, mother, caretaker. Never wondered what I wanted or needed or dreamed about. And I let it happen. I made myself smaller and smaller until I almost disappeared, because I thought that's what marriage was. Sacrifice, service, putting someone else first. I thought if he was a good man, that was enough, that wanting more was selfish. But it wasn't enough. And wanting to be seen, to be known, to matter as a full person, that's not selfish. That's basic. I'm 80 years old now. I've been a widow for 2 years, and I'm happier than I've been in 5 decades. Not because I'm glad James is dead, but because I'm finally alive. I go places I want to go. I spend time with people who actually talk to me, not at me. I have opinions and I share them. I make choices based on what I want, not what someone else needs. And I'm learning who I am at 80, because I never got the chance before. My daughter understands now. She said watching me come alive after Dad died made her look at her own marriage differently. Made her realize that staying with someone who's good on paper but wrong for you isn't noble. It's just slow death. My son struggles with it more. He thinks I'm being disrespectful to his father's memory, that I should be more grateful for the life James gave me. But James didn't give me a life. He gave me security, stability, a role to play, not a life. And I spent 52 years confusing those things. Here's what I wish I'd known at 18. A good person isn't automatically a good partner. Kindness isn't the same as connection. Safety isn't the same as happiness. You can spend your whole life with someone who never hurt you and still be deeply, painfully alone. If you're in a marriage like that right now, where nothing's technically wrong but everything feels empty, you're not crazy, you're not ungrateful, you're just living with someone who can't or won't see you, and you have a choice. You can stay and disappear slowly, convincing yourself it's enough. Or you can admit that a good person and the right person aren't always the same thing. I didn't have that choice, or I thought I didn't. In my generation, you stayed, no matter what, even if it meant losing yourself completely. But you do have a choice, and life is too short to spend it being invisible to the person you wake up next to every day. When James died, I felt relief, and I felt guilty about that relief for months, but I don't anymore, because I finally understand. I wasn't relieved he was gone. I was relieved I could finally come back, after 52 years of being a ghost in my own life. Both things are true. He was a good man, and I still felt relief, because goodness isn't enough, and realizing that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you honest. I'm 80 years old. I have maybe 10 good years left if I'm lucky. And I'm spending every single one of them being fully myself. Finally. If this resonated with you, if you felt something, just hit subscribe. There's more where this came from.